Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Earlier this week, once again brandishing his Catholic credentials, President Trump signed an executive order extending protection to babies who are born alive surviving an abortion. And if you're wondering why a presidential executive order is necessary to protect a living child lying on the table, fresh from an attempted murder of his life, is because the gruesome bastards who run the Democratic Marxist Party cannot allow even that child to live. So they make sure it is offered no protections and is either smothered or left on the table to just die naturally, as all the doctors just walk out of the room and leave the tiny person shivering and gasping for air. Frankly, the term bastards is too kind a word for these heartless monsters. For the foreseeable future, it is President Trump alone who has offered a measure of protection for these babies.
Today I am announcing that I will be signing the Born Alive executive order to ensure that all precious babies born alive, no matter their circumstances, receive the medical care that they deserve.
Now, consider, there are some faithful Catholics on social media who are saying they're not going to vote for Trump. They claim to be turned off by his demeanor or his tweeting or his New York brashness and clear speaking habit. Others point to his sinful past as an excuse to beg off casting a vote for him. And others say they aren't going to vote at all because the whole process is somehow beneath their dignity, or they're going to vote for some third-party candidate. Of course, anyone is allowed to vote or not vote, however they see fit. But, voting and voting correctly is not just a choice at this point, but an actual duty. In fact, given the circumstances, it rises to a moral imperative. And what are the circumstances precisely we're talking about? Well, to put it plainly, you and your loved ones are staring down the barrel of a Bolshevik gun and their finger is on the trigger. They are killers, period. And given the chance, they'd kill you in a heartbeat. They are almost done erecting a kingdom of Satan on this earth, and when they are done, you will either bow to them or you will die. If you find that hard to swallow, well, consult the number of murdered children, or now the number of murdered cops in these Marxist, mostly peaceful protests. If the Marxist left wins this election, the world as you know it is gonna change. Likewise, the world will change for everyone else around you, including your children. Do you really, seriously think for one moment these agents of Satan are going to let some little bastions of the authentic faith survive? You will be identified, hunted down, declared illegal for some made-up reason, which they will be able to make up because they will have all the levers of power. How dare any Catholic pretend they are somehow above all this? Or Trump is crass, so I'm not going to vote for him. If he loses and all this is set in motion, don't be expressing your regrets as you're herded onto the trains heading off for the camps. When you go vote, you have to consider the effect your vote will have not just on you and your hoity-toity tastes and everything, but the common good. And we don't mean the term common good the way the Marxist and panty-waist theology crowd throws it around as a kind of reductionist approach. We mean the actual common good as the church understands it, that the good of the whole must be considered as it relates to salvation. Is the church more able to fulfill its role for mankind in this set of circumstances as opposed to that set of circumstances? Under a Trump administration, the church enjoys a safe space in which to carry out her mission. The fact that the bishops fail does not remove our obligation to act, and in the political world, the action is voting and getting others to vote correctly. Under a Harris-Biden administration, the church would be snuffed out, the authentic church. In fact, it wouldn't be very unlike the situation the church finds herself in under the Marxists in China, a state-approved church versus the actual church. After all, if the state can order churches to close because of a virus and the bishops quickly fall into line, the precedent has now been set, and it can and will happen again. What the crowd of Catholics who might consider themselves somehow above the fray and not willing to get dirt on their hands should consider is this. Marxists, once they gained power, have no use for religion, as their founder himself declared, and anyone who clings to their guns or their Bibles will be considered, then labeled, then persecuted as an enemy of the state. Your children or your grandchildren will be taken from you and re-educated. Your access to the sacraments will be largely cut off. Hillary Clinton declared on the campaign trail in 2015 that religious values would have to change. Kamala Harris introduced a bill into the Senate just last year to say that the First Amendment freedom of religion cannot be used as a shield to discriminate, her word, against such things as homosexual rights. Obama delivered infamous remarks that poor people are bitter and cling to their guns and their Bibles. Judge Amy Coney Barrett, during her confirmation hearings, was accused of being too religious by Senator Dianne Feinstein. This list of slights against religion from this crowd is little else than a thin veneer covering over their hatred of God and religion, morality, and Catholicism in particular. If you think for one instant that the full weight of their power would not be exercised against you and your fellow Catholics who are also affected by your vote, then you don't understand the world you live in. You don't get to not vote and not vote correctly, and that means Trump. For all his flaws, which, by the way, you have plenty of as well, he's the only thing standing in the way, holding back the floodwaters of a complete communist takeover. He's more Catholic in his perception of the world than most Catholics, including and especially considering the bishops, at least collectively, as well as many of the hippie gay clergy. This goes to an even larger issue with Catholics, this timidity, the lack of zeal, the terrified to act. The corrupt hierarchy has gotten away with murder because Catholics have let them. Insecure personalities who like to attribute their lack of action to religiosity refuse to take the necessary steps they can take to challenge the status quo in the church as well as the culture. That's how evil has advanced to this point and is poised to engulf the world. Do you get that? Engulf the world. Catholics were born for combat, yet all the evil in the world is due to lukewarm Catholics. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.